The Italian American Leadership Council was started originally by my father 24 years ago, just before he passed away. And the first dinner that he was going to be having, he was planning it, and then 2 months before the dinner happened, he passed away. And so now we have this event that was started. Mainly what we try to do is honor prominent people in the business community and in the medical community in Western New York, and also whatever money we raise, we donate to a charity that's meaningful to the family. So this year we're doing the Coats for Kids. We've done the Ilio DiPaolo Foundation before. We've done the Lou Bellatier Foundation. So we try to do different things to help those charities. It's more just to bring people together and honor St. Joseph's Day.
Yes, it is. It's when the Italians all come together and share, and needless to say, a time to honor, especially those in our community. And with Mr. Castiglia and the sons that have started the Leadership Council, and to be honored the Billoni family here today, Anthony, Paul, and Michael, it's just a very special day here in Western New York, and especially in our Italian community.
And I'm here for Mike Billoni and his brother Paul. They do an awful lot. You know what they do with the Colts and everything like that. It's a big day. There must be more St. Joseph's Day parties going on. I bought a table and I had trouble filling it because I'm going to this one, I'm going to that one. But it's a great pat on the back for us Italian Americans in Buffalo, and we are behind anything we can possibly do for the community.
Here we are tonight. Dennis DiPaolo's hosting us. Russ Salvatore's here, myself, Danny DeJory, Ronnie DeJory from Picasso Pizza. We're like one big brotherhood, and we get together and we try to help as many charities as we can. That's what it's all about, is giving back.
Well, I am extremely proud after 23 years that it'd be so successful, and we could never do it without Ilio's. He did an amazing job. The place is beautiful, and all the Billontis, they've been friends for 35 years. So we really have a good group this year, and we're really proud of everybody.
Buonasera, and viva San Giuseppe.
Viva San Giuseppe.
Welcome to the 23rd Annual Italian American Leadership Council's Anthony M. Castiglia Achievement Award. My name is Charles Castiglia, obviously chairman of the council, but more importantly, I'm Anthony's son. And on behalf of my mother, Loretta, my brother, Patrick, my children, my wife, Rachel, who are all here today, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts to celebrate St. Joseph's Day with us. I wasn't going to go in this direction a little bit, but I think it's appropriate. My uncle passed away this weekend. His name was Angelo DeRosa. It was my grandmother's brother. And this past summer, my grandmother, Mary Cutini, passed away at 99 years old. So my grandmother and her brother, Joseph, who was 95, were the last two remaining family members. And that now makes my mother truly the oldest member of our family, and she truly is the patriarch. So I'm happy to have her here today. Although she wants me to apologize in advance that she can't walk up here because her back's bothering her. But she's here. She's here.
Does that make her the boss now?
Sure sounds like
No, I think you are, Pat. So speaking of family, Lee Iacocca, the former chairman of Chrysler, said, "The only rock that I know that stays steady, the only institution that I know works, is the family." With today's honorees, we gained an amazing insight to what family is all about, but actually more like what it's meant to be. I recently had an amazing trip with my wife a few weeks ago. We got to go to Hawaii, and if you haven't been there, you got to go. It is absolutely stunningly beautiful. But we learned this new word that we were being told by almost all the people, all the natives that were there, and it's called ohana. And ohana is an idea in Hawaiian culture. It means family in the Hawaiian language, but it is in a much wider sense to include not only one's closer relatives, but also one's cousins, in-laws, friends, the race, neighbors. The idea is also that family and friends are bound together, and everyone must work together and not forget each other. The idea is that we must care for each other, our communities, and all those we share the world with. Jesus taught us not only to love God with all our hearts, but to love one another. Just as we learned from our ancestors in Sicily, as Doctor shared with us, when Joseph interceded on their behalf to end the famine, they held a great feast in his honor, to feed and nourish the poor and those who are less fortunate. The Billoni family represents this ideal. Michael has brought our community together in so many ways in all the different activities through his career. being on the board for the Buffalo and Erie County Naval Military Servicemen's Park, his past job with the Western New York Food Bank and the Buffalo Bisons. He created all these events when he was the Bisons to bring people together. There was an Italian night, there was a this night, that night. It was all ways to bring the community together. He fed the poor with the food bank. He truly is a person who cared for those in need. Paul is also shown to be a leader, giving back to our community with his Coach for Kids program, which gives warmth, that gives the gift of warmth for all those in Western New York, for all those who are less fortunate, and the Gowns for Prom that allows young ladies in need to pick out a prom dress of their dreams. He even cares for our global community by providing green earth cleaning process, so he's not using the harmful chemicals that will damage our ecosystem. Anthony is another champion, although I forgot all about the offbeat cinema. I ain't going, damn it, that's why he looked so familiar when I first saw him. Anthony is a champion for us all, particularly through his tireless efforts as director of the Tobacco-Free Western New York at Roswell Park Cancer Institute. He has led the fight to keep us all healthy by not being subjected to secondhand smoke throughout our daily lives. He is the person who put all that together. He also practices his servant leadership in many other ways, but one that I love is that his involvement in the Rotary Club of Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus, showing what servant leadership is all about. These three family members, these three brothers, are a shining example of how a good family with tremendous family values can impact our community. My father would be so proud of what they stand for and what they have accomplished.
Well, a lot of people have been calling us the men of the hour, so I guess we each get 20 minutes to talk, so I'll try and keep it a little shorter than that. First, recognizing all the extended Billonis and Bianchis, and anybody that happens to be sitting at a Billoni table, you're honorary Billonis tonight. Hey, you're all honorary Billonis tonight, so let's just go with that. And I'd also like to especially thank my friends from Roswell, especially the Roswell Park Art Committee. It was a real honor, and Ed and Cheryl Cardoni, who were able to join them, from my friends in the arts community, who I hold very close and dear to my heart. And also, I wouldn't be talking about Roswell Park today were it not for my friend Phil Haberstroh, the tireless champion of wellness, who was into wellness when it was just sort of like this willy-nilly boutique item, but now do we need it more than anything. And Phil has always been on the front lines, leading us in. When do we start the walks on Wednesday, Phil? Soon. Soon, very good. So meet us at Kaminsky Park at Roswell. Let's have a little bit of geography. Plymouth, Connecticut, Vermont, West, Fargo, Boosty, Breckenridge, Holy Angels, Holy Cross, Annunciation. These are the locales of Mom and Dad's folks, places we all visited as we grew up in the 60s. While never knowing our granddads, we experienced and respected the faith, strength, and heritage of Rosario Billoni and Teresa Bianchi. Grandma Billoni was feisty, even at 4'9". And I still remember visits for sauce on Sundays to the house on Plymouth where the entire Billoni family was raised. Sadly, she left us in 1966, and we had longer with Grandma Bianchi. Independent to the end, she lived in a flat on Breckenridge on the west side to her passing in 1976. Toward the end, there were more frequent and longer visits in our home in Kenmore, where between praying, she would enjoy her episodes of Gunsmoke and Little Ouse, as she called it, Little Ouse on the Prairie. I share members of my grandfolks because they set the tone for why we're here today. They were active in their community and active in their church, which in those days were pretty much the same. They taught their children, our mom and dad, these values, and Joe and Tony did the same. They were active in helping more friends and more groups than we had time tonight to mention. Outstanding were the Holy Cross, St. Paul's Church, Holy Cross Church, by the way, and the school, St. Paul's School, and of course, Dad's favorite, Knights of Columbus. Dad helped start the St. Joseph's table there, and of course he complained when the same few, you know who they are, always were there taking piles on their plates ahead of everyone else. And we lived through the many experiments until Mom got the sphingy just right. So thank you all for this most humbling honor, but as you see, we have generations behind us that set the example, and generations ahead of us, as I have my lovely children here, Bianca and Gianna, and my lovely girlfriend, Katie. Whether they know it or not, they'll be giving service to Aunt Cindy on Saturday, 4 hours of... but they're already active in it, having served at their community day camp as volunteer counselors for the last 3 years, and they understand how it works. And I believe deep in my heart that giving is not charity, it's community, and it's society, and it's the highest thing that we're able to do. So we accept this honor in the names of our parents and their parents, and God bless you all.
Well, first I'd like to start by thanking Charlie Castiglia and the Italian American Leadership Council Committee for selecting my brother Mike, my brother Tony, and myself for this, Anthony Castiglia Achievement Award. As Tony elated, we're prodigies of our parents, and we're receiving an award together, so you would think that all three of us are pretty much alike. Well, we all grew up in an Italian household. My parents, Tony and Joe. The two characteristics that I think all three of us acquired from them is they always drove in us, you always pull for the underdog. Okay, you always support the underdog. And that's a popular thing today, bullying, okay? So if you were pulling for the underdog, you wouldn't be bullying. So my parents were on track way back when, and they probably got it from their parents. The other thing that they drove to us is you always give to the people in need. You always take care of them. And I never knew we grew up poor until I was like 18, 19 years old. So as much as my parents did for so many people in the church, so many people at the Knights of Columbus, all the different charities that they contributed to, this was something that they always pushed on us. So those two things, I believe, the three of us, it makes us alike. The other things, I don't know, you're going to have to decide on your own. On my father's deathbed, he told us, he said, the three of you must stick together. I never want you separated. And in his honor, maybe he influenced this committee, today. I don't know. And he's sending us a message that we're doing okay. I sure hope that that's what it is. Growing up in an Italian household was never boring. My mother was from a town on the Swiss border, Vigiù, in Italy.
I know Vigiù.
Yeah. Okay. Now, how far is that from Leonforte in Sicily?
Enormous.
Okay. Well, my wife of 37 years, and 5 years before that, the first time she was at our home, we leave the house, and we're getting in, I think I had the Mercury Capri at the time. We get in the car, and Cindy says, what were your parents so mad about? I looked at her, I said, mad? What do you mean mad? Well, they were like talking so loud, and they were like yelling at each other. And I go, honey. You got to understand. That's how they talk. They love each other. They weren't mad at all. But I want to thank my wife for the 5 years before and the 37 years we've been married. Well, 37 years is August 28th, or July 28th, I'm sorry. Oh my God, it's going to get me in trouble. I just want to thank her for all her loving and support. Just like that. And corrections once in a while. Well, you know, one of the best times in the Billoni house is when, and I've got to tell my brothers this, and this is absolutely nothing against my two beautiful nieces, but you know what? Cindy and I did deliver the first grandchild and the second. So Nana and Papa loved Christopher and Erica like there was a lot more than they loved me, I think. There's no question about it. One time I'm coming home from the cleaners, it's about 5:30. Christopher was at Sue's, my cousin Sue's house, who would babysit or watch Christopher and Erica, and it was like their second home. So they left Sue's, go over to Nana and Papa's, and Christopher's laying on the floor in front of the TV, watching TV. I come in, it's about 5:30, I'm pretty shot, and my father's sitting on his chair. I don't know what he was drinking, but it was on the rocks. And I said, Chris, come on, let's go. Get up, let's go. And I started talking to my father about something at work, and it might have gotten a little heated, our voices raised, but our voices always raised in the house. And my father, you know, my father says, what do you got to talk, you know, the second time I go on, Chris, come on, let's go, we got to go. My father looks at me and says, what do you got to talk like that to the kid for? Why do you got to raise your voice? I'm like, okay, no problem, Dad. So we leave. We get in the truck and we're driving home. And on the way home, Chris goes, you know, Dad, you were like raising your voice to Papa. You know, you really shouldn't raise your voice to Papa. So Papa's got the grandkid, and you know, and I'm just like out there in the lurches. But you know, it was beautiful. It was beautiful to live through and experience, because now Luca Christopher was born 6 months ago. So beware, Christopher. You know, not only does Colvin Cleaners, well, I had the good fortune of not only being raised by my parents, disciplined by my parents, but really most of the discipline came from the priests at St. Paul's and the nuns at St. Paul's School. I mean, because, you know, they figure as long as I send them there, they don't have to do anything. The church will do the rest. So, you know, my parents had Colvin Cleaners, and I started working with them in 1976, 42 years ago this August. And it doesn't seem like it, but boy, I look back and how fortunate I was to be able to work side by side with my mother and father. There were tough times, I mean, but the one thing that my mother and father always did was they always took care of their charities, no matter how much money we had in the bank. We always, I'm like, I mean, they didn't give us any electric, they didn't give us any gas, how come we're paying them first? They always believed in that until this day. Christopher will tell you, Heidi will tell you, Heidi writes the checks quicker. She's the fastest check writer in the West. Man. Do business with Colvin Cleaners because you'll always get paid real quick, right, Heidi? So I had the opportunity of working with my parents for a number of years. My father until 1998 and my mother until 2003. And I can't explain how, you know, you're raised and you go off, you get married and you live somewhere and you work a job, but to be able to work with your parents and not only work the business but grow the business. And the sense of accomplishment, the sense of pride, how proud my parents were of the business that they had taken over from my Uncle Phil, who started it in '31, my father's older brother. It was just, indescribable when they would be out in public and I would be with them and they would introduce me, how proud they were of what was going on with the business. And now I've got my son Christopher, who's been with the company for 9 years, and I just wish that Nana and Papa could be here today to see the wonderful job you're doing with the company and how proud we are of what you're doing. You know, our company today donates every year to over 400 different charities, you know, throughout the community, along with our Coach for Kids program and along with our Gowns for Prom program, which are two unique programs that it's not like we're donating money to something, but our time, our services, our supplies, our things like that all go into it, and our employees are all engaged in it. Samantha, our general manager, is a huge proponent of that, and she believes in it, and all of the people working with us believe in it, and that's really what makes it happen. The dollars that come in through like the Allstate Foundation, and you know, we're very fortunate and we're so thankful that the Italian American Leadership Council Committee is donating a portion of tonight's proceeds to our programs. Those dollars go toward promoting the programs through the media and things like that. Everything else is donated, you know, by the company and by all the employees of the company. So that's a little bit about, you know, what our Italian family is about, and it's probably not a lot different than most of the other Italian families, you know, in this room. It was loud, but boy, I'll tell you, we learned some real good values from our parents, and we're teaching our children. It might not be as loud in our household, but, you know, I'm so proud that you're engaged in these programs, Christopher, you know, because that's not something that you can force on somebody. It's something that you really have to believe in. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. I continue to thank Jesus for saving my life 25 years ago, and all the great doctors at ECMC. They have done a remarkable job for myself and to Mr. Russ Salvatore, that we're here because of them. And I just thank them very much, and I reach out to the Lord every day to watch my steps and what I say and guide me each and every way that I can. This is really a special honor. I knew Anthony Castiglia and his wife so very, very well, and I remember him back on Grant Street on the Old West Side. So to be recognized with this prestigious award means so very much to me. I also am honored to see Ilio DiPaolo's lovely bride, Mrs. DiPaolo, here. It's so wonderful to see you. I know that Ilio is looking down upon us, Anthony's looking down upon us on their children, and I know that Lou Billiter Sr. and his lovely bride are looking down upon Lou Jr. and Mary Beth, because these are second generations of wonderful businesses that are continuing to go on in the tradition of their family, and I thank you very much for what you're doing. Charles got up here earlier, and he's working his tail off and his staff, but this man here, if he is allowed to do what he's doing and people listen, he may bring an end to this opioid crisis. Charles got sick and tired of bearing too many kids that are dying of opioids, that he went to the national funeral directors, wrote a couple books, and he's out speaking at churches and groups that we have to get to the families to end this epidemic. Charles, I thank you very, very much for what you're doing. Monsignor Lorenzetti, it is such a complete honor having you here with us today. Debbie and I are so pleased that you agreed 11 and a half years ago to say the wedding vows for us. You're a dear, dear friend of our family. You go back with my mom many years ago at Holy Cross Church. What you don't know about Monsignor Lorenzetti is that for the Catholic Diocese, he's been a priest for 65 years. He was part of many years ago, he was away at a conference for families. Sitting next to him, listening attentively to every word that he said, was a young nun who went on to be now Saint Mother Teresa. Thank you very much for all you do, Monsignor. The charitable nature that my brothers and I have really is part of our life can be directly traced to Monsignor Dino Lorenzetti. When he began as a priest, he was assigned to Holy Cross Church. And as you heard, my mom grew up there. She had 5 girlfriends and her sisters. But these 5 girlfriends of my mom, that's all they had. My mom's father died when she was a young girl, so she became the father of the family. And they didn't have much. But what they did have, they had a lot of, and that was love and friendship and family. And they used that to motivate themselves and keep themselves going. And they learned from Monsignor the importance of giving back and helping others. Those early lessons were passed on to the 3 of us. And thank God we listened to something they said as we grew up on the west side and then moved into Kenmore. This year will be a special year for us, and it begins here today because later on this year will be 15 years since my mom passed, and a few months after that will be 20 years since my dad passed. It seems like only yesterday, and we miss him, terribly. My mom was born on Election Day in 1921, and my godmother used to tell me that my grandmother named her Josephine after St. Joseph. The way Mom lived her life and what St. Joseph was about of helping the homeless and feeding the poor, I see exactly why my grandmother did that. For the Irish, March is considered St. Patrick's Month. For my mom and her 5 lifelong friends who formed the 6 PMs, complete with dues and minutes from every meeting over 70 years, March was St. Joseph Month. As young kids, I remember Mom on her favorite chair in the corner of the living room calling each of the club girls late at night to discuss that year's St. Joseph table. Who was going to get the linguine? Clara Falzone always had made the Consardi sauce. Uncle Joe Falzone had the secret spot for the Gardoons, and on and on. My dad's job, though, was always the same. On or before the big day, he would stop at Bellasteri Bakeries or Luigi's to get the specially made St. Joseph's bread. Mom always knew he would order an extra cross. And on the way home, he would stop at Bova's Deli on Connecticut and Plymouth to pick up 1 or possibly a couple sticks of pepperoni and some cheese. It made for a great snack on the way home, but the crumbs on his sweater always gave it away. Monsignor Lorenzetti used to bless our table a number of times when these girls would have the St. Joseph parties at their house. As we grew up, we stopped hosting the table and we would go out on St. Joseph Day. And the premier table in Western New York as we were growing up was at Salvatore's Italian Gardens, where Mr. Salvatore would look at, before the line went up, would go and inspect every tray there, send it back, and bring it back. Mr. Salvatore, you are the premier restaurateur, and we thank you for all that you do. I'm going to wish you an early 85th birthday, because if March is St. Joseph's Day, April then is the Russell Salvatore birthday party, the entire month. Tonight brings back so many memories, but for me, one word comes to mind loudly, and that's tradition. To me, that's what St. Joseph tables are, a tradition from Sicily so many years ago that is brought here to America and is shared by so many families. Our parents gave us another tradition. Because Paul and his lovely bride Cindy, who went to school to be a teacher but never got to the school, but just helped Paul save COVID cleaners. Because way back when it was about that close of closing, and my cousin Jim and his wife Sue here, Jim's father started it 87 years ago. So on Monday nights, my mother, and Paul was right, my father would do anything to get a grandkid. And, I was still in the research and development era of marriage. I could, it took me so long to find Debbie, and I said, I'm waiting for that angel. So Christopher comes along, and immediately my parents said, he's with us. So on Mondays, they're working, and they're watching Christopher, so my mother said, Cindy, come on, we'll have dinner. It had to be a 40-year tradition of pasta Mondays at our house. And the kids loved it, and it was so great to see. Then Gianna and Bianca came, and, Nana and Papa had pasta Mondays. Every Monday, the same pasta and the macaroni. Well, one time my mother said, this is getting boring. So we get over to the house, and she had a beautiful tray of baked chicken. And we're all looking at it, and, the kid says the darndest thing. Christopher says, Nana, where's the pasta? Well, I thought, no. Had to go back, and we had to make instant, get the sauce out and make it, and we had pasta that night. But those are the traditions that we grew up with, and the tradition of giving to help others, and that's what makes this Gowns for Prom program so near and dear to our heart, is that Cindy and Paul have poured their heart into it, and we appreciate tonight, some of the proceeds are going toward that. Any of you that are inspired to get your gowns that you have in your closets, this coming Saturday from 10 until 2, there's a gown drive at all 3 of the Reed's Gents locations. You'll see commercials on WBBZ starting Wednesday. On behalf of our family, I want to thank you very, very much. I'm humbled and honored to be recognized by the Castilia family. Thank you.
God bless you. I didn't realize all that great stuff. This is well deserved.
It was really appreciated.
Great job. Great job. Thank you very much. Good luck.